Hello, thank you for listening to my comprehensive assessment plan. This plan is really aligned with this quote from Allington, where he says assessments are not selected as a mere means to assess students' proficiency, but rather to improve their proficiency. So each tool that was selected was thoughtfully taken into consideration to determine, is this something where the data can actually improve and move readers forward, or is it something where it's just going to be data that's put to the side, as so often assessments are treated in a classroom. So the students that are going to be assessed as part of this plan are in first grade. This classroom includes students who receive targeted reading intervention as part of a Title I reading program. So in selecting the tools, it was important to think about the reading continuum and how students move along a path of skills. So the ultimate goal here is comprehension. Are students integrating many sources of information in order to understand what they're reading? Behind that is fluency. Contingent on fluency is the application of alphabetic principles to decode. So as we move along the different pieces that are used as part of this plan, they are looking at all those pieces and how they work together to make a proficient reader. So the tools that are used are the Fontes and Pinnell Benchmark Assessment, the DIBELS Oral Reading Fluency, the Quick Phonics Screener, and the DIBELS Nonsense Word Fluency. If you think back to that continuum, the Fontes and Pinnell Benchmark Assessment is looking at how a student integrates many sources of information, their level of fluency, their ability to self-monitor, and their level of comprehension. This is part of the district benchmark formative assessment schedule in order to determine independent reading levels for all students. This is especially important for intervention students, where you really need to be assessing students after interventions, before and during, to make sure that the interventions are actually working. Another measure to be used is the DIBELS Oral Reading Fluency. While it's not as in-depth, it does have standardized scores and standardized administration, which allows for easier comparison of the data. The Fontes and Pinnell Benchmark Assessment does take a level of expertise in really understanding how readers think and work, and being able to analyze that data. So sometimes the data isn't always comparable if you think about who might be actually giving the assessment, where the DIBELS Oral Reading Fluency is much more standardized without as much note-taking and understanding of the reading behaviors of a student. When thinking about the importance of phonics and its connection to reading fluency and ultimately comprehension, the Quick Phonics Screener is used as a diagnostic measure based on teacher discretion. If a student is falling below benchmark in oral reading fluency, we just want to make sure that there's not a phonics deficit that we need to be addressing first. So the Quick Phonics Screener is intended to do that. And then again, just how we have two different measures for assessing oral reading fluency, there's also two different measures for phonics. And the second one would be the DIBELS Nonsense Word Fluency. So this, again, is used to determine students who are meeting benchmark or in need of interventions in the area of early decoding. This is the F&P Benchmark Assessment to determine integration of reading skills and behaviors. So just like any reading inventory, you're looking at how a student is attending to print, their errors, the way that they might be self-correcting, and the sources of information that they're using. Are they attending to meaning, structure of language, visual print information? We're looking at an accuracy score, self-correction, which would let me know as a teacher if they're able to monitor and use sources of information, fluency, and of course their level of comprehension. Writing about reading is not a mandated piece of this assessment in order to determine independent reading levels. So once a teacher analyzes this, they can determine where the breakdown occurs in reading. So I would continue to move up on the benchmark assessment until I have a level that is within the instructional or hard range, so that I could see really what does the student need in order to progress. This is the DIBELS Oral Reading Fluency measure. As you can see, the text passages look different. You are looking at words read correctly in 1 minute. So you are taking into account errors. However, As opposed to the F&P benchmark, you're not analyzing those errors in order to really understand what that reader is attending to. Then there is a brief retell. It is not as in-depth as a comprehension conversation. It's just 1 minute, and you're counting words that are on topic that the student is giving based on the passage. So if a student falls below benchmark in the Fontesson-Pinnell, and if it's looking like that's an issue where they're not attending to visual print, then I would look at the Dibbles nonsense word fluency. Now these are just short vowel nonsense word patterns. So this is early decoding behaviors, not taking into account long vowels or blends or digraphs. So you're looking at CVC patterns or vowel consonant patterns. The goal here is that students would be able to automatically read these as whole words. So for example, if you were looking at this first word, I would want a student to say ball, not b-a-o. So that lets me know the level of proficiency with the alphabetic principle. If a student is struggling with this, then I would focus some targeted intervention in decoding. This does not really give you what a student needs in terms of phonics skills and patterns. So that's where I would do the quick phonics screener. This is more like a word features test. While it does include some nonsense words here to really let me know if a student can decode and not just rely on sight memory, it does include some connected text pieces with real words. So I can see here, all right, what is the area that the student really began to struggle? So for this student, he was doing okay in short vowels, digraphs, and blends. Once we got to long vowels, it became very labored. While he did receive a score of 9 out of 10, which is 90%, it was hard. So I'm going to then focus my instruction here on that CVCE pattern. So with each piece of this assessment plan, the ultimate goal is to develop a really comprehensive profile of the reader. What is it that they need in order to move forward? What is it that they already have a handle on? So that ultimately we can really focus and target instruction towards each of those individualized skills that those readers are requiring.